Uh, yes, the border crisis is horrible, and that was one of arguably the biggest lie that was told, or I don't even know what to call it a lie. He didn't. Well, he did lie. He told a few lies about the border, but for him to even bring it up was a joke, and it does come down to him thinking that we're stupid. But there's actually one that may be a bigger threat that he brought up in his gaslighting speech last night, that in the long term, and really even not too terribly long, we're not like talking about decades away, even in the next few months or years, we might have to deal with, well, I'll just come out and say it. We might have to deal with modern monetary theory, which would be the destruction of the United States of America. I'm not being hyperbolic by saying that. It really, truly might be. And the way that they plan on getting there, they being the Democrats and Joe Biden and all of his cronies, they want to get there through Medicare and Social Security. So I have an article over at thelibertydaily.com, discernreport.com, americafirstreport.com, all the various places where I publish, titled Hate of the Union, Why Biden and Democrats Continue Gaslighting About Medicare and Social Security. According to the article, the vast majority of Republicans on Capitol Hill either oppose cuts to Medicare and Social Security, or they avoid the issue like the plague. It should be an issue that the quote-unquote fiscally conservative party talks about more, but Democrats have made it such a topic that President Trump, Speaker Kevin McCarthy, and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell are all in agreement that the GOP will not touch it. Kevin McCarthy even came out recently and said that Medicare and Social Security cuts were off the table in his negotiations with the Biden-Harris regime regarding raising the debt ceiling. Back to the article. Why then do Democrats continue to claim Republicans are going after the two massive entitlement expenditures? At Tuesday night's State of the Union speech, Joe Biden continued to gaslight over the issue. Thankfully, some Republicans pushed back. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene went so far as to scream out, "Liar!" when Biden brought it up. Let's go ahead and play this. I think this is about a 2-minute video, 1 minute and a half. Let's go ahead and play this.
Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means Congress doesn't vote. Well, I'm glad to see you. No, I tell you, I enjoy conversion. You know, it means if Congress doesn't keep the programs the way they are, they'd go away. Other Republicans say, I'm not saying it's a majority of you. I don't even think it's even a significant, but it's being proposed by individuals. I'm not politely not naming them, but it's being proposed by some of you. Look, folks, the idea is that we're not going to be moved into being threatened to default on the debt if we don't respond. Folks,
that look by Mike Lee there at the end, that was great. I mean, it's just like, he's like, what the hell? So bad. Biden, back to the article. Biden at least acknowledged that it's not most Republicans. He said that he had the receipts in the form of a proposal that was sent to him, likely by a handful of Republican lawmakers who rightly pointed out that Medicare and Social Security are unsustainable if reforms are not made immediately. But it's toxic. And that's the point. Why do even lucid and otherwise fiscally responsible Republicans shy away from this important issue? It's because Democrats desperately need them to fail. They need the burden of entitlements to cripple American taxpayers and lead this nation toward the inevitable forced adoption of modern monetary theory. There are only two possible ways to continue Medicare and Social Security. Either we make massive cuts across the board, or we print money to cover the expenses. That's it. The former will be unpopular amongst lawmakers who know that cuts are the easiest way for them to lose elections. The latter would be pure devastation that prompts a complete economic collapse as more nations abandon the US dollar as the world reserve currency. And let's be clear, if we do go to modern monetary theory, if we start printing money to pay the bills, More so than we are. We're already, some will argue, and I would not disagree with them, will argue that we're technically already there. We're already in the process of this modern monetary theory as money keeps getting printed just to pay off bills. And not just from COVID. I mean, we've been doing it for a long, long time. It's just gotten exponentially worse over the last 3 or 4 years, right? But this is, for those who are unfamiliar, modern monetary theory is the concept of basically you spend you don't spend based on what you have, you make based on what you want to spend. In other words, you accumulate bills and then you just print more money to pay them. Now, obviously, for anybody with a single brain cell, that's all it takes is a single brain cell. That's obviously not sustainable. Over time, you create what's called hyperinflation because you're printing so much money that it's essentially loses its value altogether. Now, in other nations, that's devastating. But for the United States of America, it would be not just devastating. This would be like the worst possible thing because of the petrodollar, because we are the world reserve currency. The only reason we can have a nearly $32 trillion debt, national debt right now, the only reason that doesn't absolutely just crush us, okay, is because we are the other nations, so many other nations, the vast majority of other nations are somehow tied to the dollar. We set up this deal, it's long story, but because of the dollar's status as the world reserve currency, it's kind of like we can't fail, not because we're too big to fail, but because if we do, other nations will fail along with us. The vast majority of them will. They will be crippled. And this is why so many of them, seeing what we're doing, seeing the money that we're printing willy-nilly, this is why so many of them are already turning towards other alternatives. They're looking to BRICS, okay? Brazil, Russia, China, India, South Africa, okay? And then more BRICS nations are joining. This is why they are pulling away from us, because we made a promise when we became the world reserve currency, when the dollar became the world reserve currency, we made a promise that we are not going to inflate our dollar too much, and not inflate it. We're not going to inflate money supply. But that's exactly what Democrats and globalists in particular, I think that for whatever reason, most Democrats, even on Capitol Hill, seem to be oblivious to it. Unless they just really are just pure evil, because if you know anything about it, then you'd be like, whoa, we can't really do this. This is going to destroy the nation. I'm not talking about the socialists who openly want to, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders or anybody like that. I'm talking about the quote unquote sane Democrats. Okay, they have to be either ignorant or willfully ignorant or just stupid in general, because these policies that they're pushing for will destroy us. And it's not, people say that the reason that the Democrats keep gaslighting about Medicare and Social Security is because they hope that to scare the elderly voters into voting for them instead of Republicans. Folks, elderly voters, I trust their judgment better than I trust anybody else's. Okay, they know what they're voting for, generally speaking, and they're not going to be conned when they've got candidates that are saying no. When you got Kevin McCarthy saying no, we're not going to cut Medicare or Social Security. When you got Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump saying no, we're not going to cut Medicare or Social Security. When you got the vast majority of Republicans out there saying no, we're not going to touch Medicare or Social Security. These voters aren't stupid. They're not going to be like, oh, well, Joe Biden said that they're going to cut it, so I guess they are. Okay, that's not how it works. That's not at least how they work. Maybe younger voters are like that, but older voters, generally speaking, will know that they'll be able to sniff out that lie. So it's not about that. This is about gaslighting, not just us. This is about gaslighting and intimidating and somehow getting Republicans to say, no. I mean, it's working. For them to be able to get Republicans to all universally, with a handful of exceptions, say we're not going to touch Medicare or Social Security, Democrats are like, okay, you better not, because we're going to keep telling people that you're going to unless you don't. You better not, because then we'll be proven right, and then whatever. They need Medicare and Social Security to fail. This is the pathway, the easiest, not the only, but it's the easiest pathway through which the globalist elite cabal, the liberal world order, will be able to achieve one of their biggest goals, which is to create or cause the downfall of the economy of the United States. That's what they want. And the way that they can do that, the way that they can get to their multipolar society, their 10 regional governments that they plan to rule over in this biblical end time scenario, The way that they get there is by making the United States crush itself economically. And modern monetary theory is the way to do that. So when we're sitting here in 2, 3, 5, 10, 15 years, however long it takes before it's like, oh my gosh, we don't have the money to pay for Medicare, Social Security, and all of our other expenses. The only thing we could possibly do is print our way out of it. And all of a sudden, you've got Republicans who would have obviously normally been against that. They're like, well, yeah, I guess that's the only thing we can do at this point because we waited too long. You've heard the term for years, kicking the can down the road. At some point, the road ends, and if you kick the can, it's just gonna bounce back and hit you in the nose. And that's what's going to happen to the United States of America very soon if we do not address modern monetary theory. But again, it's still gaslighting. It's still a lie for Biden to come out and say that. He's not saying it for the voters, though. He's saying it, and they will continue to say it over and over again, even after it's debunked, even after Washington Post fact checkers even come out and say, well, technically speaking, Joe Biden was wrong or whatever. Even they'll keep doing it. It's very similar to, when leftists, they say, oh, you're Republican, you're a bigot. And Republicans are like, no, look, I'm not a bigot. Look, I've got black friends. I support my local LGBTQIA plus chapter of whatever. And hey, I even whatever. You get the idea. That's the same type of bullying. But in this case, there's an actual negative to it. Okay. That actual negative is that if we do nothing about Medicare and Social Security, as both Democrats and Republican leadership, both of them have said that that's the case, then we're in trouble. Then we're done. This is not sustainable. There's too much money going out, not enough money coming in. And you might say that, well, Democrats are going to fix that through taxes. If you run the numbers, it's not like, oh, okay, so we can fix this by raising taxes 2%. No. We're talking about doubling, tripling, quadrupling taxes. And we're not just talking about the ultra rich, even though that's what they always say. No, we're talking about the middle class. Folks, the ultra rich can't pay for everything. They really just can't. If you run the math, it is always the middle class that gets hit the hardest with the irresponsible expenditures coming out of D.C. as well as some state governments like here in California, but mostly coming out of D.C. They're coming after us. They're coming after our money, and they're trying to force the United States economy to collapse under the weight of modern monetary theory. That's why they want Medicare and Social Security to remain untouched. That's why they want it to remain untenable. That's why they wanted to eventually force our demise as a nation. There's a reason Klaus Schwab, Joe Biden, and the globalist elites want your life savings locked in IRAs and other portfolio management schemes that they control. They can keep your money tied up in woke ESG funds, even if doing so will lose you money. Patriots are quickly moving their investments to self-directed IRAs backed by physical precious metals. Unfortunately, most companies that work in this field are beholden to Democrats, the Chinese Communist Party, the WEF, and others who are pushing us toward a digital dollar. I have identified 3 precious metals companies that believe in America first. These companies make it easy for you to move your retirements and investment to a self-directed IRA backed by physical precious metals. Go to jdrucker.com/gold. That's jdrucker.com/gold.